So let's talk about some word problems and how to not make them more difficult than they need to be. We are going to set up and solve them, but just remember that this is just like translating from English to math. Math is a language, English is a language. We're just doing some translation. So the first couple should hopefully be fairly simple here. The product, number one, the product of 7 and a number increased by 3 is equal to twice the number subtracted from 39. Find the number. Well, when you just read it like that, it sounds like a lot and you don't even know what you read. So we go back. First of all, what does product mean? Multiply, right? We're going to multiply. The product of 7 and a number. Okay, so the number, we could use X, we could use Y, we could use N for number. You can use whatever you want as long as you know what you're using there. So let's use N for number. So the product of 7 and a number. So 7 times N. So there's my product of 7 and a number increased by 3. So then what do I need to do to it? Add 3. And then it says is. In math, is means equal. So 7n plus 3 is, and it literally says is equal, but you don't have to have the word equal, is equal to twice the number subtracted from 39. So do I do twice the number minus 39 like that? No, because it says subtracted from. So twice the number subtracted from 39. So 39 minus twice the number. And there's your equation. Okay. If you just try to read it all at once and try and do it all at once, it's a lot. But once you break it down, just, don't make it more than it is. And some are way more complicated than others for sure. So now it's just a very simple problem. I'm going to add 2n at 9n. I'll subtract 3 equals 36. N equals 4. Then, of course, we want to make sure that we actually answer the question. So it says find the number. Well, the number is n, product of 7 and a number. So my number is 4. Just make sure you're not supposed to use that 4 to find the other number or whatever might be going on in there. Okay, we good on all that? Questions? All right. So 5 less than twice a number. Now, here, I want you to think about this. Okay, if you're taking a foreign language on this campus, your only options are French and Spanish, right? And whichever one you're taking, if you were to take a sentence in English and translate it literally word for word to make a sentence in that other language, is that sentence going to make sense? No, it's going to sound pretty much backwards, right? What you need to remember is English is backwards, not Spanish, not French, not math. English is backwards. Hello. Oh, sorry. And so you have to be careful trying to translate this stuff word for word, which we kind of already figured out in the first one. But here, this is a very, very common mistake. 5 less than twice a number. So 5 less than twice a number. Is that really how I'm supposed to write that? No. And I think at this level, you kind of know that, but that's a very common mistake that I see. So 5 less means I'm going to subtract 5. Right? So 5 less than twice a number. So twice a number minus 5. That is 5 less than twice a number. Is, even if it doesn't have the word equal, is equal to 1/2 the difference of 3 times the number and 13. Okay, again, lots of words. But it's equal to 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to take half of something. Half the difference of, so difference means I'm going to do what? Subtract 3 times the number and 13. So I want the difference of 3 times the number and 13. So it'll be 3n minus 13, right? This right here, this is 3 times the number, the difference of 3 times the number and 13. Well, I want half of that. What else do I need on the right-hand side? Parentheses, very good. Because I want half of this entire thing, right? So now, so once you set it up, then reread it and make sure what you have makes sense. This is 1/2 of, okay, and of means multiply, the difference between 3 times the number and 13. It's not just half of 3 times the number. Everybody good with all that? And then are you capable of solving this equation? You are. So we'll just move on because I think you can solve them. We just got to make sure we can set them up. All right, we're going to skip 3 and 4. We're going to jump down to number 5. So the length of a rectangle is 1 more than 4 times its width. If the perimeter of the rectangle is 62 meters, find the dimensions of the rectangle. All right, so we got length and width. For the length, I'm going to use a lowercase cursive L so it doesn't look like a 1. But it says the length of the rectangle, so L, is 1 more than 4 times the width. So it's going to be 4 times the width plus 1. Okay, length is 1 more than 4 times the width. We all agree with that? Now, the problem here is I've got 2 variables. So if I have 2 variables, I have to have 2 equations. That makes it a system of equations, which is probably the next thing we're going to attack and go review on because SAT loves systems of equations. But I have more information here. It says the perimeter of the rectangle is 62 meters. Now, to find the perimeter of anything, what do you do with the sides? Add them all up, right? And so it helps if I have the equation for the perimeter, but you don't have to have all the equations memorized. How many lengths do you have in a 2? And how many widths? 2. So it's pretty simple to come up with, right? So 2 times the length plus 2 times the width is going to be equal to what? 62, because it tells me that that's the perimeter. So now I have 2 equations and 2 variables, and this is a very simple system. I think that we had come upon a few in that SAT stuff where they were nicely set up for elimination. I feel like this one's nicely set up for substitution, because if L is equal to 4W plus 1, I can take that and substitute it in right there, right? So that means it's going to be 2, and then I'm substituting in something with more than 1 term, so 4W plus 1 plus 2W equals 62. Okay. Any questions about where anything came from or how we set that up? No, we all good? All right, so then let's go ahead and finish this one up. I'm going to distribute that. Give me 8W plus 2, because I'm going to distribute correctly, plus 2W equals 62. So 10W equals 60. W equals 6. Am I finished with this question? No, because it says find the dimensions of the rectangle. Well, that's the width. I also need the length. I can substitute the width into either one of my pink equations. I think the first one probably makes the most sense to do. So L is equal to 4 times 6 plus 1. Length is 25. Okay. What questions do you have? Anything? Okie dokie. Then we're going to skip number 6 and let's flip this over. All right, so this is number 7 is very similar to one of the ones that some of y'all were working on, and some of y'all got 100% through yesterday. But let's talk about your thought process, which there was really nothing wrong with your thought process. And some of you kind of got stuck and you were like halfway through your process. So we're going to talk about how to set this one up 2 different ways. I'm going to start by the way that most of you were kind of processing through this. So this says the measure of one angle is 6 more than half the measure of another angle. So y'all used different things. Some people used X, some people used Y, some people used N, some people used A and B. You can use whatever variables you want, okay? So I'm going to use A just because it's for angle, whatever. But y'all, a lot of you got down the 6 more than half the measure of the other angle. So you would do like 1/2 A plus 6, right? That's 6 more than half of an angle. Then some of us got stuck on the complementary supplementary part, right? Complementary means the angles add to give me what? 180. Complementary? Complementary is 90. Supplementary is 180. Something you have to know. Okay, we should know those things. So you go, oh, okay. So, I mean, yesterday, the one you were working on yesterday was 180. But so then some of y'all did this, and then we had a hard time wrapping our mind around why I told you we had to put something else in there. This is just one of the angles, right? Well, one of the angles doesn't equal 90, right? And that makes sense to us. But this is half the other angle plus 6. So I have to take this angle plus the other angle. So this angle plus that, that's where I get my 90 from. Okay. Now, another way to look at this so that you actually end up with two equations and two variables, I'll use x and y on this one just so it's different. Put this up here at the top. The measure of one angle is, so the measure of one angle, that first angle, I'm going to call it x. It is, that's equal. 6 more than half the measure of another angle. So it's half of the other angle plus 6. Okay. So one angle is equal to half the other angle plus 6. And then since the angles are complementary, I know that the two angles added together equal 90. So what I did in purple, that is just straight up setting up a system, okay, which I know is not always the road that your brain goes down. That's why a lot of you started down here, which again is fine, but we'll kind of talk about why one might be better than the other, kind of train your brain to. At this point, it's kind of like substitution like the other one. I could take this and substitute it in right here for x. So I'd end up with 1/2 y plus 6 plus y equals 90. And then you can see how very similar that is to the green one. I just have the extra angle in the back instead of in the front. Okay. But since I have the green one written in there, let's just go ahead and solve through this because we'll get the same answer either way. Now here, I don't know that I want to really combine the a's together because that has a fraction. I'd rather get rid of the fraction, right? We can get rid of the fraction right now, or we could move the 6 first. And most people did it now, and there were a few people that would have moved the 6 first. It really doesn't matter either way. But I'm going to do it now because I feel like that's where a lot of y'all would have gone. When I go to clear this, I have to make sure I multiply what by 2? Everything, every single term. And that's where the mistake happens when we're clearing fractions. So not a bad idea to actually write that you are multiplying each one by 2. And that's where our laziness sometimes gets us. So this is going to give me 2 times a plus, then I'm multiplying that to cancel that out. So that's just an a plus 12 equals 2 times 90 is 180. Okay, everybody with me so far? So I'm going to combine these and get 3a, and then I'll subtract the 12. So 3a equals 168. Now, is 168 divisible by 3? Yes, we can add those together, and that's divisible by 3. So that means a is equal to 3 goes into 16 5 times. Get with one more, so get 56. Okay. Now, here's where I think most of you did fine getting from here to the final answer yesterday. But here's where maybe having 2 separate equations could be helpful because we're not done. It says find both measures. Well, this is one of them, right? The other one is kind of hidden in my equation, whereas if I did this and I got x equals 56, or actually I would have gotten y equals 56, then I would substitute it back in and I can get my x, and I have those equations that make sense. Here, it's fine. You just have to make sure you know that you're just trying to put it into that part because that's the other angle. You with me on that? So then I'm going to do 1/2 times 56 plus 6. So half of 56 is 28, and I get 34. Okay, and these actually should be both degrees because they're angle measures. Can I check myself? What are they supposed to add to give me? 90. So I can add them together and make sure I get 90, right? If I don't, I did something way wrong. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, you could totally do that too. Thank you. Both work, 100%. If you do 90 minus 56, though, Not that that's wrong or bad. If I do 90 minus 56 and I get 34, which is still the right answer, but then if I check myself, clearly that would be 90 if I subtracted correctly, right? So then what you could do is also make sure that that equals 34, but either way, absolutely, you could have done that. Good question. What else we got? Anything else? Okay, let's jump to 9. Okay, so the measure of the vertex angle and an isosceles triangle, okay, right there, we already got a lot of vocabulary that if we don't know, we can't do anything, right? What makes an isosceles triangle an isosceles triangle? Two sides are congruent, okay? It's at least two sides congruent, but it's two sides congruent. So there's my, there's my isosceles triangle, right? Then we got to know what the vertex angle is. What's the vertex angle? The top one, right? If it's turned the right way. This is my vertex angle right here, right? All right, so I got an isosceles triangle, vertex angle. It's 6 less than 4 times the measure of a base angle. So tell me about the base angles in an isosceles triangle. What do we know about them? They're congruent because they're across from the congruent sides. So these two are the same, right? Base angles are congruent. We have a vertex angle, right? All right. So vertex angle, we'll do V for vertex, B for base angle, just so that can make some sense of this. The vertex angle in an isosceles triangle is, so vertex angle is 6 less than 4 times the measure of a base angle. So what would I write? 4 times B minus 6, sorry, oh my God. Stupid thing. Okay. Sorry. 4b minus 6. Now, two variables, one equation. How many degrees are in a triangle? 180. So I have one vertex angle plus 2 base angles has to give me 180. And there's my little system of equations. Okay. So that first one comes from that sentence. The second one comes from me just knowing stuff about triangles. Okay, we good with all that? Then it is set up pretty simply for substitution again. So I can substitute that in right there for V and get 4b minus 6 plus 2b equals 180. Okay. 6b would equal 186. Now, did we talk about we know how to look to see if a number is divisible by 3. Do we know how to look at a number and know if it's divisible by 6? I don't know if we talked about that in here or not, I'm sure. Okay, so if a number is divisible by 6, it has to be divisible by 2 and 3. Being divisible by 2 is super easy. It's even, right? So I know it's divisible by 2. And it's also divisible by 3, right? We agree with that? Because if I add those up, I get 15. So then I know it's evenly divisible by 6, and I don't have to guess and check. So B is equal to what? 6 goes into 18 3 times, 31. Okay. Did they ask me for B? No. If this was on the SAT, which it totally could be, I guarantee you 31's an answer choice. And somebody's going to go, woohoo, I got 31, and it's there. You're going to pick it, and you're going to move on, and you're going to be wrong, right? Because I had to find it, but they're asking me for the vertex angle. I can substitute this back into either one. Which one looks a little better? Nicer, maybe? The first one? I think, yeah. So V is equal to 4 times 31 minus 6. Or I could, do some other little calculations because of 180 degrees, but that would basically be using this equation. So that's going to be equal to 124 minus 6. Is that right? B equals 118. So there's my vertex angle, and these are degrees again. Can I also check myself here? One vertex angle plus 2 base angles is supposed to equal what? 180. So you can check yourself, but it is the right answer. Okay. What questions you got? Anything? All right. Let's look at 10. The sum of 4 consecutive integers is 222. So let's talk about what consecutive means. Consecutive is one right after another. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 4, 5, 6. Those are consecutive integers. Integers are just whole numbers or counting numbers. They can be positive and negative. So if I have my first one to be x, so if my numbers are 4, 5, and 6, what do I do to 4 to get to 5? Add 1. So it'll be x plus 1 plus, what would the next number be? X plus what? 2 plus then x plus 3. There are my 4 numbers. Those parentheses right now, they're just grouping things so I can see that I actually have 4 numbers. There's no multiplication or anything, so I could totally just drop them, but they do help kind of organize your question. When you add them all together, they're equal to 222. That's the setup of the question, and then really the rest is solving it, and it's a piece of cake. So when I can pretend like the parentheses aren't there, I will get 4x plus 6 equals 222. That means that 4x equals 216, right? Last period I said 116. They all went, what? I go, oh. I was seeing if you were paying attention, which is almost never true, but please call me out if I do something weird. Then I can just divide by 4. I can divide by 2, which is 108, and then divide again by 2, and that gives me 54. Is 54 my final answer? No, I need the integers, and there's 4 of them, and they're consecutive, so it's pretty easy. It's 54, 55, 56, and 57. Okay. What questions you got on that? All right, let's look at 12. We're going to skip 11 and go to 12. This says 3 consecutive even integers. So not 4, 5, 6. It'd be like 4, 6, 8, right? So I got to skip over things. So let's think about this. And it's not even, it doesn't even say the sum of them. It says find 3 consecutive even integers such that. Okay, that just means find 3 consecutive even integers where the rest of what we're about to say is true. So let's talk about how to find 3 consecutive even integers. If my first one is x, what do I have to add to x to get to the next even integer? 2, because if this is 4, I'd have to get to 6, right? So this would have to be x plus 2. So think about my answer. My numbers are not 4, 6, and 8, but if they were 4, 6, and 8, I'd have 4, then I add 2, and then this would be x plus 4. This is true for even or odd. Think about if my numbers were 5, 6, oh no, not, that wouldn't be odd. 5, 7, 9. I still, from here to here, I add 2, from here to here, I add 4, okay? So you're either adding 1, or you're adding 2, 1, 2, 3, or you're adding 2, 4, 6, so that you can jump over the ones that aren't even or odd. You with me on that? Okay. And then when we look at the rest of the question, it says such that the sum of the smallest integer is twice the median integer, and twice the median integer is 20 more than the largest integer. Again, lots of words. So you just read it, so you got the words in your head, and let's go back and organize it. First of all, median, what does median mean? Middle. Think about in the middle of the road, that grassy part that, you know, a lot of times will divide the sides of traffic going opposite ways. That's the median because it's in the middle. So the sum means you're going to do what operation? Add. So the sum of the smallest integer, this is my smallest integer, x, plus twice the median integer. Well, this is the median one because it's in the middle. So the sum of x and twice the median, and since that's 2 terms, I have to put it in parentheses. So right now, that is the sum of the smallest integer and twice the median integer is, okay, so that's equal. 20 more, that means I'm going to add 20 to something, 20 more than the largest integer. This is the largest one, x plus 4. Now on the x plus 4, I don't necessarily need the parentheses, but I do think it helps for you to be able to tell where all your numbers are, okay? So smallest plus 2 times the median equals 20 more than the largest. Everybody okay with that process of the thinking through that? Then we just solve it. Did this first set of parentheses matter? Are they? Yes, they're really important, right? So it's x plus 2x plus 4, because we're not going to make a ridiculous distribution error, equals, now these parentheses, they can just go away, equals x plus 24. Then on the left, I'm going to combine before I start moving things. 3x plus 4 equals x plus 24. So that'll give me 2x equals 20 and x equals 10. Now, does x represent the smallest one? Yes. So then that is going to be 10, 12, and 14. Okay. Questions on that? We good? Okay. On the piece of paper you have right now, back on the front, I want you to mark out number 6. And then you're going to finish any of the ones that we didn't do, plus the 2 on the paper from yesterday. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions at this point? All righty. This is